After driving 600 miles to surprise my husband for our anniversary, I walked into our bedroom and found him shirtless, laughing with my sister on our bed. I dropped the cake I baked myself and heard her whisper, "She's too clueless to notice." He just stared at me like I was the intruder. 3 weeks later, I walked into his workplace with divorce papers, full custody demands, and a video that made his boss call security on him. I'm 38. My husband, Mark, is 40. We've been married 11 years. We met at a bar in Austin, Texas, when we were in our 20s. He was calm, funny, and smart in that way that doesn't make you feel stupid. I was drawn to him. I thought he was a good man. We lived in Denver together for the past 8 years. No kids for the first several years, just work, travel, building a life. We bought a little 3-bedroom house with a backyard big enough for the dog I always wanted. After trying for years, I finally got pregnant 3 years ago. Our son, Logan, is 2 now. A few months ago, my mom had a bad fall down the stairs in El Paso. Broke her hip. She's 72 and lives alone. There was no question I had to go help. I took a leave from my Denver job and worked remotely from her place in El Paso while taking care of her. Mark and I agreed it would just be temporary, maybe a couple months. He'd visit, I'd visit. We'd keep things strong. Only he started visiting less. At first it was every other weekend. Then once a month. Then nothing. He said work was crazy. He said travel was hard. I believed him. I always believed him. Our anniversary was coming up, 11 years. I told him I couldn't make it that weekend because of Mom's therapy schedule. That was a lie. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to remind him we were still us. That we could still be strong. I baked his favorite cake the night before, chocolate with espresso buttercream. The same one I made on our first anniversary. I packed it carefully, wrapped in foil inside a cooler. I left Logan with my mom's nurse, packed an overnight bag, and started driving. Nearly 600 miles. I drove through the night, stopped only for gas and a bathroom. I replayed every moment in my head, how I'd walk in and see his face light up. How we'd eat the cake in bed and laugh about how corny I was. I got there just before 7 a.m. I still had my spare key. The garage door was unlocked anyway. His car was in the driveway. Everything felt normal. I tiptoed through the kitchen, cake box in hand. The house was quiet. Then I heard voices. I walked upstairs, toward the bedroom. I still remember every step. It felt like the air was getting heavier with each one. The door was open just a crack. I pushed it open. Mark was shirtless, sitting on the bed. My sister, Melanie, was under the covers, laughing. She was laughing. And then I heard her say it. She's too clueless to notice. She didn't know I was there yet. Then she looked up. Saw me in the doorway. Her face turned pale. Mark turned too. Just stared at me. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Just looked at me like I was nothing. The cake dropped out of my hands. It hit the floor and slid under the dresser. The lid popped off. I remember seeing the chocolate smearing against the wood. I don't know why that stuck with me. I couldn't breathe. I looked at her. Then at him. Melanie scrambled to grab the sheet and cover herself. This isn't," she started, but I walked out before she finished the lie. Mark never said a word. Not one word. I walked downstairs in silence. Grabbed my purse. Got in my car. Drove. I don't even know where I drove to at first. I ended up at a cheap motel outside Castle Rock. I sat there for hours. Didn't shower. Didn't eat. Just sat. I didn't cry until the next day. Then I cried for hours. When I stopped, I called a lawyer. I met with the lawyer 2 days later, back in El Paso. I told him everything. Not just the cheating. The fact that it was with my sister. That it happened in my bed. That my son was supposed to grow up in that house. The lawyer didn't blink. He'd heard worse, probably. But he nodded and asked the right questions. Did I want full custody? Yes. Was I willing to fight for the house? No. He could keep the bed he ruined. Then I told him about the cameras. You see, Mark had installed cameras in the house last year after a break-and scare. I remembered that he set one up in the hallway and another just inside the bedroom, pointed at the closet door in case anyone broke in upstairs. What Mark didn't know is that I still had access to the cloud account. That night, in my motel room, I logged in. There they were. Timestamps. Footage. Dozens of little thumbnails going back weeks. I clicked on one at random. There she was. Melanie. Walking around in a towel. Then again. 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 I watched one clip and my hands started shaking. Mark pulled her into the room, kissed her like he hadn't kissed me in years. She laughed. She said something I couldn't hear. He closed the door behind them. I downloaded everything. Every video. Every date. I sent copies to my lawyer and I saved others to a flash drive. I didn't sleep that night. I just watched clip after clip, my eyes burning. Not out of curiosity. Out of rage. 3 weeks passed. I didn't answer Mark's calls. He texted a few times. Nothing dramatic, just "Are you okay?" or "Call me when you can." I guess Melanie hadn't told him I saw it all. Or maybe he didn't care. My mom kept asking why I looked so tired. I didn't tell her the truth. Not yet. The morning I left for Denver again, I dressed carefully. Nothing flashy. Just black jeans, black blouse, flats. I printed the divorce papers. Custody request. Copies of the videos, still images, all of it. I had the flash drive in my pocket. Mark worked at a mid-sized tech company just outside downtown Denver. His office was on the 3rd floor. I knew the layout. I'd been there for company picnics. I walked in just before lunch. Receptionist looked up. "Hi," I said calmly. "I'm here to see Mark Bennett. Does he know you're coming?" "He doesn't. But I promise he'll want to see me." She looked nervous, but buzzed me through. I took the elevator. Heart pounding. Hands steady. He was in his glass office, talking to a younger guy. I stepped in without knocking. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Sarah." He stood up. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I just walked over, opened my folder, and dropped the papers on his desk. "What is this?" he asked. "Divorce," I said. "Full custody. And some attachments you might want to read before you get your hopes up." His coworker looked confused. I handed him the flash drive. "Go ahead," I said, louder now. "Play the videos. Especially the one from August 19th, 10:14 a.m. It's a good one." Mark paled. "Sarah, stop." "No. You stop. Stop pretending you're confused. Stop lying." "You're done, Mark." "I have the footage. I have the dates. I have everything." The room had gone dead silent. His coworker stared at him, then at me. Seconds later, a man in a suit came in. "The boss, I think. Is there a problem?" I turned to him, calm as ever. "Yes. Mark's been screwing my sister in our home for months. And the videos are on your company-issued laptop." "What?" the boss asked. I gave him the flash drive, I said. "I can also email them if you prefer." That's when the shouting started. Mark tried to take the flash drive from the coworker's hand. The boss yelled for security. I walked out before they arrived. I didn't look back. 2 days after the office incident, Melanie called me. I didn't answer the first 3 times, but on the 4th, I picked up. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear what kind of lies she'd try to spin. "Sarah," she started. Her voice cracked like she'd been crying. "Please, can we talk?" I stayed silent. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that," she said. It started with us drinking after Logan's birthday. He said you were never around anymore. That he was lonely." I laughed. I actually laughed. "You slept with my husband in my bed and blamed it on loneliness?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. I made a mistake." "No," I said. "A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. This was a choice." Over and over. She tried again. Can we just meet? Just talk? I hung up. The next morning, a letter came from Mark's attorney. He was contesting full custody. That same afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer. "You're not going to like this," he said. "But Melanie just filed for emergency visitation rights." I thought I misheard him. "What?" "She claims she's had a maternal relationship with Logan and that you're trying to sever her access out of spite." "She's not his mother," I said, almost shouting. "She's never even been a consistent part of his life. She shows up for holidays. That's it." "I believe you," he said. "But we need to prepare for the worst." Melanie had filed under a state clause that allows certain relatives to request visitation if they can prove a strong pre-existing bond. I was furious. Not just that she slept with my husband, but now she wanted a legal connection to my son. 2 days later, I found out why. Mark had moved in with her. I saw it on Facebook, through a mutual friend's tagged photo. The two of them at a backyard barbecue, acting like a couple. Holding hands. Melanie holding Logan, my son, in her lap like he was hers. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. That night, I made some calls. I wasn't done yet. I spent the next week quietly collecting everything I could. Every text, every email, every photo Melanie had ever sent me bragging about Mark before any of this happened. She used to joke that he was hot for a husband, not knowing how sick those words would feel later. I didn't delete anything, but that wasn't enough. I needed real leverage. So I started digging. And that's when I found it. Mark's company had strict policies about employee conduct, especially when it came to using company property for personal activities. Remember that flash drive I gave his coworker? It turns out he did open it. And he reported it. The IT department flagged Mark's account for inappropriate use of company devices. They found evidence that Mark used his work laptop to store some of the bedroom footage. And worse, he had forwarded one clip to his personal email. That violated 2 serious policies: data misuse and improper content storage. My lawyer got wind of it through a mutual contact in corporate law. We filed an anonymous ethics complaint to the company's board. A week later, Mark was suspended pending investigation. And then came the next twist: child support. He suddenly stopped paying. No warning. No explanation. Just stopped. When I asked the lawyer, he said Mark claimed he'd lost most of his income due to harassment and false allegations. Melanie was apparently footing the bills now, her small business savings keeping them afloat. So I took a step further. I contacted a journalist. Not one of those flashy TV types, but a small, well-respected investigative blogger who writes about family law loopholes and divorce corruption in Colorado. I sent him everything: videos, court documents, background. He dug deeper than I ever could. And that's when the biggest twist hit. Melanie was still married. To a man named Derek, who lived in Arizona. They'd separated 3 years ago, but never filed divorce papers. I had no idea. None. Which meant the entire relationship between her and Mark, public, online, all of it, was a documented case of adultery for both sides. And Derek? He was pissed. He called me after the blog went live with the headline, "Tech Manager Fired After Affair with Wife's Sister Sparks Corporate Scandal." I had no clue, Derek said. She told me she was single. We were working toward final papers, but Christ. I didn't even know she was in Denver. He offered to send me emails, texts, old messages from Melanie trying to convince him not to file yet so she could sort her finances. I told him yes. Send everything. A week later, Melanie's emergency visitation hearing was postponed. Her lawyer suddenly dropped her case. That same night, Mark texted me, "I never wanted it to be like this. We can still fix it." For Logan. I stared at the screen for 5 full minutes. Then I typed back, "I already did." The final hearing was 3 weeks later. I walked into that courtroom like I was walking into battle. Not because I was confident, but because I had nothing left to lose. I had spent months rebuilding myself from the ground up while they played house with the pieces of my life. Mark was there in a navy suit. Melanie sat behind him, arms crossed, trying to look small and harmless. She wore a beige dress and no makeup, like she thought playing innocent would save her. The judge looked over the papers, the evidence, the video timestamps, the sworn affidavits from my neighbors who'd seen Melanie's car parked in front of my house for days at a time. He asked me if I believed my son would be in any danger if left alone with Mark or Melanie. I said yes. Not because I thought they'd physically hurt him, but because emotional damage is real too. Because letting a child grow up in a house built on betrayal messes with your mind more than anyone admits. Because I wouldn't let my son think this was love. The judge paused, asked me if I had anything else to submit. I handed over a printed screenshot. It was a text Mark sent Melanie 3 days after I caught them. It read, "I don't care if she found out. It's better this way. Now we don't have to sneak around." She was a dead marriage anyway. Melanie had sent that text to someone else, her old roommate. That woman gave it to my lawyer, probably out of guilt or maybe spite. I didn't care why. I was just grateful. The judge looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at Logan's birth certificate. Then he looked at Mark. "You've made it very clear, Mr. Bennett, how little regard you have for your marriage. And for the emotional health of your son." He granted me full physical and legal custody. Mark got supervised visits. Twice a month. No overnights. No exceptions. Melanie's emergency visitation? Denied. She had no legal standing. No blood claim. And the court now had proof she wasn't just a bad influence, she was a liability. After the ruling, Mark stood up like he was going to say something. But I looked right at him. "You chose her," I said. "And now you can keep her." I left the courthouse without looking back. A week later, I learned Mark was officially fired. The company finished their investigation and terminated his contract for misconduct and policy violations. Word spread. No one in Denver's tech scene wanted to touch him. Melanie's business tanked too. Customers bailed after the blog exposed her shady personal life. But here's the part one haven't told anyone yet. 6 months after the divorce, I drove to Arizona to meet Derek. We had coffee. We talked. We laughed about the insanity of it all. He told me how Melanie had once told him I was the crazy sister, the jealous one. We both laughed until it felt like we were breathing for the first time in months. We stayed in touch. No rush, no pressure. Just two people who got burned by the same fire, now standing on the other side of the ashes. Sometimes revenge isn't about screaming or violence or big moments. Sometimes it's about healing in front of the people who tried to break you and making sure they know they didn't win. Mark lost his wife, his son, his job, and his reputation. Melanie lost her marriage, her business, and her fantasy of being the one who got it all. And me? I got peace. And my son got me. Whole. Standing tall. Not broken. That's the only win I ever needed.